have Opponens pollicus, pollicus being for the pollex. We have the forearms. These are the antebrachium. Unum antebrachium, duo antebrachia. If we had our hand like this and we turn it over, this is going to be supination. Pronation, supination. Our extensors are going to be on the posterior side of the forearm. Forgive me for intruding, but were you the one who happened to be looking for some help with their anatomy and physiology homework? Okay, thank goodness. You see, I have been lugging around this gigantic tome of Gray's Anatomy all over the library looking for you. But that's just fine. So, what is it that you needed some assistance with? Okay, let me put this down. So right now you're going over the forearm and the hand, and you're having some trouble with that. Is it more the bones, or does it happen to be the muscles? Okay, we've got the bones down pat, right? So we know the humerus, the radius, the ulna, carpals, metacarpals, and phalanges, but those very long muscle names are a little tricky. That's just fine. So we could work primarily out of Gray's Anatomy, but it's a little dense. It's a little dense. And I think that to really understand what we're looking at, what we need to memorize, it's much more helpful if we look at the actual arm itself and the hands so we can see what it is that these muscles do. And if we learn a little bit of Latin, then actually a lot of these names are pretty intuitive. To be quite frank, a lot of English is actually pretty intuitive if you know a little bit of Latin. So we can go over the Latin roots a little bit, and that can help us also remember what's going on. Okay? So let me grab my notes, and we can get started. So firstly, what we need to know is, again, all of this is pretty much in Latin. Some of it's in ancient Greek, but we're going to be focusing on the Latin. So in Latin, the arm is called the brachium. We have one brachium, two brachia, unum brachium, duo brachia. We have the forearms. These are the antebrachium. Unum antebrachium, duo antebrachia. And with the hands, we have manos. Una manos, duae manus. Una manos, duae manus. So where this is going to come into play is that brachium word. You're going to see that a lot in these muscle names. We're also going to see the name for the wrist and the digits. So it'll make it a lot easier to figure out where these muscles are and what they may do. So I'd like to just open up the book and let's go ahead and take a look at the arm and try to map out these different muscles. So the first thing we need to know are some special anatomical terms. So firstly, we have anterior, and this is going to mean the front, so the front of the body. In relation to the arm, this is going to be the inside of the arm and the palm side of the hand. Posterior is going to be the back of the arm and the back of the hand. Prone is also going to be related to the term pronate. So if something is prone, it is face down. So to pronate would be to, for example, do this sort of motion, to go from palm up to down, as if we were dumping something from the hand. The opposite of that is going to be supine or supinate. This means that it's going to be face up. So if we had our hand like this and we turn it over, this is going to be supination. Pronation, supination. Prone, supine. Next we have lateral. So this is going to be moving away from the midline. So if you imagine an imaginary line going from your head down to your toes, right through the middle of you. If you move away from that line, that goes lateral. And if you move towards it, that goes medial. Medial is closer to the midline. Lateral is further away. Next we have superior and inferior. So superior is going to be towards the head. Inferior is going to be away from the head. We can also think of this as superior being above and inferior being below. For example, you have the supraclavicular lymph nodes. Those are above the clavicle, and infraclavicular is below the clavicle. We have superficial, which means that it is close to the surface of the body. The skin would be your most superficial feature. Deep is going to be away from the surface of the body, so the muscles are going to be deeper than the skin. We have proximal and distal. Proximal means nearer to the point of origin of a structure. Distal is going to be further away. So with the fingers, we have multiple joints in the fingers. This is your proximal joint. This one is closer to the point of origin. And this one is your distal joint. This one is further away. Lastly, we have ad and ab. In Latin, ad means to, ab means from. So if we hear the term adductor, we are coming to, and abductor means going away. So we're actually going to start with looking at the upper arm a little bit, but I guess the lower part of it. So we're going to start with biceps brachii, and this has two heads. That's what biceps means. It attaches to two different points. We have the coracoid process, and we have the supraglenoid tubercle. You're not going to need to know those just yet, but that's why it's called the biceps. When we get into the triceps, that one has three heads. So we have the biceps brachii, and this does flexion of the forearm, flexion at the elbow. And then we also get into supination of the palm. And if you remember, if you're holding your hand up like you're holding something, that is supine, supination. And if you flip it over, that's pronation, or going towards the prone side. So if you put your hand right in here and you flip your hand over, you can feel that muscle work there as we go from supination to pronation and back. So from biceps brachii up here, we're going to move more towards the posterior arm, and we're going to move laterally towards that. So we have the biceps, and then we get into brachialis in here. Brachialis is going to help us do flexion at the elbow of the forearm. And then we'll get into the back, which is going to be a little hard to see here. But this is going to be triceps brachii. You might have had a doctor elicit the triceps reflex by tapping the back of your elbow here. So the triceps muscle has three heads, which is why it's called triceps. We have the lateral head, the long head, and the short or medial head. And the triceps helps us do extension at the elbow and of the forearm. So we just got done talking about the triceps, and that would be this muscle right here, one on the posterior side of the upper arm. And next we have this small muscle right here. This is called the anconeus, and the anconeus helps us with extension of the forearm. We're going to do a little bit of flip-flopping. So firstly, we want to go over brachioradialis here. And this is one of our flexors. But then after that, we're going to be talking about our extensors before we get back into the flexors. So brachioradialis helps us with our flexion of the forearm and flexion at the elbow. You can feel it work a little bit if you move the arm around. So now we're going to be getting into the extensors of the arm. So if you remember, this is the anterior portion, the front of the arm. The posterior is the back. So we're going to start with the posterior and work into the anterior. So our extensors are going to be on the posterior side of the forearm. We have superficial and deep extensors. Our deep extensor is going to be the supinator, and that helps us with the supination of the palm. Pronation, supination. For our superficial extensors, we start with the extensor carpi radialis longus. Now, this book is very, very old, so some of the muscle names have changed a bit. This here says extensor carpi radialis longior, but now this is called longus. So extensor means that it helps extend. This one extends the wrist. We have the wrist is the carpi word. Radialis helps us with location. It's along the radius bone. And then longus or longior just tells us the size of it. So this is a long muscle along the radius that extends the wrist. So our next muscle is the extensor carpi radialis brevis here, right in here. And this one, we have the key term brevis, which means short. Now we can think of this word as the root of the word brief, which also means short. So we have the long muscle that extends the wrist at the radius, and we have the short muscle that extends the wrist at the radius. Next we have extensor digitorum, the old term being extensor communis digitorum. And this muscle, if we follow it all the way over here, this muscle extends the digits here. We have the pollex, the thumb, and the digits, the other phalanges. So extensor digitorum extends the digits. And then we have extensor minimi digiti right here, which is now called extensor digiti minimi. And if we follow this one, it goes all the way to the smallest finger here. So the smallest digit, digit minimi, right in here. And then we have extensor carpi ulnaris. Can you think of maybe what this muscle name might tell us? So this is the muscle that extends the wrist and goes over the ulna. The ulna right in here. So we have extensor carpi ulnaris right in here. And this comes right over here. And if we move the wrist a bit, you can feel just a little bit of movement where this muscle would be. So now we're going to get into the flexors of the arm. So this is going to be our more superficial layer of flexors, and this is going to be a little deeper. So this is the intermediate layer of our flexors. These are going to be on the anterior side of the arm. So we have the supinator right in here. We have the biceps right there. So the biceps comes in right in this area. And then we're going to start with pronator teres. Pronator pronator teres is right here. So this one helps with pronation of the palm, pronator teres. Then we have flexor carpi radialis, right here. So this goes across the arm over to the thumb side, right here, goes across the arm. So we can tell from the name, flexor helps flex the wrist, carpi. Radialis goes over the radius here on the thumb side. And then we have palmaris longus. And we can see palmaris longus right here coming into the palm. And this also helps flex the wrist. We can feel a little bit of its work if we flex and feel for the muscles. And then we have flexor carpi ulnaris. The ulna here, and we can flex and feel flexor carpi ulnaris. So our next one, the last one on this side, is the flexor digitorum superficialis. And this one right in here helps flex the digits and the wrist. Over on this side, we start with flexor longus pollicus, though this is now called flexor pollicus longus. And this one flexes the thumb right here. So we have flex, we have pollicus for pollex, and then we have longus for the length of the muscle. Then we have flexor digitorum profundus, this big muscle in here, and this also helps flex the digits. The thenar muscles are going to be on the thumb side of the hand, and the hypothenar are going to be on the opposite side. After that, we will be getting into the metacarpal groups of muscles that are housed inside of the hand. So we have the thenar muscles here with the thumb or the pollex. We have the hypothenar right on the other side. And then we have a little bit of the lumbiricals here. And I just want you to note the shape of these. I'll tell you a little fun fact about these in just a moment. So first we have opponens pollicus, pollicus being for the pollex. Then we have abductor pollicus brevis, and remember that ab means from, ad means to, so we go abduct, adduct, abduct, adduct. And here we have flexor pollicus brevis, so that's going to be our short flexor of the thumb. And then right in here, just in the webbing of the fingers here, we have adductor pollicis brevis, the short muscle of adducting the thumb. So we're going to take a little detour for a second because our opponens digiti minimi right here is pictured on this figure rather than our other one, because this is more of a deep muscle here. We have opponens digiti minimi. And then we have the abductor digiti minimi right in here. We can feel these work a bit. We have flexor digiti minimi, and we have palmaris brevis in here. So we can feel all these different kinds of muscles work as we're playing around with the movement of the little finger. And then we'll be getting into the muscles of the metacarpals. So we have the lumbiricals, which I had said to note the shape of, because these are named after lumbricidae, or the word in Latin for earthworms, lumbricidae, lumbiricals. There are 4 muscles here. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have the palmar interossei and the dorsal interossei. So these are going to be for digit abduction and digit adduction. They're also going to help us with flexion and extension. We have these on the palmar side and these on the dorsal side. We have 4 muscles here, 3 muscles here. Our lumbiricals are also responsible for digit flexion and extension as well. So I think that's going to wrap up our study session today. I hope this was interesting. I hope that this helped you with at least getting a better idea of why these muscles are named the way they are. They might help you locate more where they're at, what they do, that sort of thing. I hope you have a whale of a day and a good rest of your night. Thank you. Goodbye now. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. I create primarily medical, alternative medicine / pseudoscience, and personal attention ASMR roleplays. If you want to check out a specific category of my videos, my channel playlists have everything from sci-fi to historical to even fantasy videos. If you want to support my work, consider checking out my Patreon profile in the description